My name is Clarissa, and I'm 32 years old. For as long as I can remember, my family has treated me like an outsider, not because of anything I did, but because of the woman my father married after my mother passed away. My stepmom, Evelyn, walked into our lives with her two kids, my stepsister Bianca and my stepbrother Luke, and from day one, she made it clear that her children came first. At first, I tried to be patient. I told myself that blending families isn't easy, and maybe with time, things would get better. But years passed, and instead of warmth, I got cold stares, constant criticism, and rules that only applied to me. Evelyn always reminded me that I should be grateful she took me in, as if I hadn't lost a mother and then been forced to play servant to a new one. But nothing could have prepared me for the evening that finally broke everything open. It was supposed to be a simple family dinner, roast chicken, a bottle of wine. Everyone gathered around the table. But the way Evelyn cleared her throat and stood up, I knew something was coming. She always had a way of making announcements like she was the queen of the house, and the rest of us were her subjects. From this day forward, she began, her voice sharp enough to cut through the air. Clarissa, you'll hand over your entire salary and every bonus you get from work. All of it will go directly to Bianca. She deserves the life you've been wasting. The fork slipped from my hand and clattered onto my plate. For a moment, I thought I had misheard. But Evelyn's eyes were fixed on me, burning with that usual disdain she reserved only for me. If you refuse, she continued, then you can walk out of this family right now. You will no longer have a place here. Bianca smirked. Luke leaned back in his chair, folding his arms, like this was all perfectly reasonable. My father? He stayed silent, his gaze lowered to his food, just as he always did when Evelyn staged these little public humiliations. My heart pounded in my chest. I glanced around the table, searching for even one ally, one person willing to stand up for me. But no one moved. It was just me, always just me. Do you hear me, Clarissa? Evelyn pressed, her voice dripping with power. Bianca deserves every opportunity, and since you've wasted yours, it's only fair that you support her. Either you accept this, or you pack your bags. For a long moment, I didn't say anything. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw my glass of wine in her face and storm out. But instead, I just sat there, quiet, letting the words burn inside me. Because here's the truth. Evelyn had no idea who I really was. She thought I was weak. She thought I was desperate to cling to her version of family. But she had no idea how much I had built for myself outside of these walls. And in that silence, something inside me shifted. But before I tell you what happened next, let me pause right here because I want to ask you something. Have you ever been underestimated by family? Have you ever been told you don't belong, that you'll never measure up? Comment below and tell me where you're watching from, and share your own story if you've faced something like this. I want to know because these stories aren't just mine. They belong to so many of us. And while you're here, don't forget to subscribe and like this video, because the best part of the story, the part Evelyn never saw coming, is still ahead. Now back to that dinner table. I finally looked up, meeting Evelyn's glare head-on. So, let me get this straight, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. You want me to work, to earn, and then hand every penny to Bianca? Yes, she snapped. It's the only way this family stays together. Bianca leaned forward, her smile widening. Don't make it difficult, Clarissa. You know Evelyn's right. You'll never use that money properly. I'll put it to good use. Maybe even finally move out of this tiny town. Luke chuckled under his breath. Honestly, you should be grateful anyone even wants you in this family. You're nothing compared to Bianca. She's the real future here. Their words stung, but they also lit something inside me. A fire I hadn't felt in years. For so long, I had swallowed their insults, let them walk all over me. But this time I wouldn't. I pushed my chair back slowly, the wooden legs scraping against the floor. Every eye at the table followed me, waiting to see if I'd crumble, if I'd beg, if I'd give in. Instead, I stood tall. You know what? I said. Maybe you're right. Maybe I don't belong here. But you're going to regret underestimating me. The room fell silent. Even Evelyn blinked, caught off guard by my sudden defiance. And that was the moment everything began to change. The silence after my words stretched so long you could hear the clock ticking on the wall. Evelyn finally let out a cold laugh, like I had just told the funniest joke in the world. "Oh, Clarissa," she sneered, "don't embarrass yourself. You've always been the weak link here. You can't even stand on your own without this family. You think you can threaten me? You should be on your knees thanking me for giving you a roof over your head." Bianca chimed in, tossing her hair back. "Seriously, stop pretending you're better than you are. You've always been a burden. Now Evelyn is giving you a chance to make yourself useful by giving me what you don't deserve." Luke smirked. "She won't do anything. She never does. All talk, no action." The words stung, but instead of shrinking, I let them settle like fuel inside me. For years I had played the quiet one, the girl who just kept her head down. But they mistook my silence for weakness. Tonight, they were about to learn the difference. I didn't sit back down. Instead, I leaned on the back of my chair, looking straight at Evelyn. "You've made your position clear. But let me make mine clear too. I won't hand over a single cent of my salary, not to Bianca, not to you, not to anyone." The air thickened. Evelyn's eyes narrowed, her lips tightening into a thin line. She was not used to being told no. "Then you can leave," she snapped. "Right now. Don't take a single thing with you. Everything in this house belongs to me." Bianca's grin widened. Luke snickered. My father shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing, like always. I wanted to scream at him, to ask how he could just sit there while his wife threw his daughter out like garbage. But I didn't. "Not yet." Instead, I just nodded slowly. "Fine," I said, my voice calm. "If that's how you want it." I walked toward the stairs, every step deliberate, as if I wasn't shaking inside. I could feel their eyes drilling into my back, expecting me to slam my door, to cry, to pack my few things in defeat. But I wasn't going upstairs to collapse. I was going upstairs to prepare. Because Evelyn thought she had all the power. She thought she controlled everything. But the truth was, the life I had built outside these walls, the career, the stability, the freedom, was mine alone. And I had kept it quiet for a reason. Now, that reason was standing right downstairs, demanding my salary for Bianca. I opened my bedroom door and shut it behind me. My hands shook, but not with fear. With anger. With anticipation. For years, I had been saving. Planning. Building something they couldn't touch. Evelyn thought she was the queen of this family, but she didn't know she was sitting on a throne made of lies. I sat at my desk, pulled out my phone, and opened my banking app. The numbers on the screen glowed back at me. 6 figures, carefully stacked from promotions, freelance contracts, and side businesses I'd never told anyone about. Investments, too, ones I had researched late at night while the rest of the house slept. I let out a slow breath. Tonight was going to be the last night Evelyn ever tried to control me. When I came back downstairs, they were still at the table, whispering to each other. The moment I appeared, Bianca rolled her eyes. "What? Are you going to beg now? Change your mind? Because, honestly, you'll be doing yourself a favor. You can't survive out there on your own." Luke added, "Yeah, you'll come crawling back. You always do." I leaned against the doorway, staring at them for a long moment before speaking. "You're wrong. And soon, you're going to see just how wrong you are." Evelyn smirked, clearly thinking I was bluffing. "You're pathetic, Clarissa. Always have been, always will be. Without me, you're nothing." That word, nothing, it sliced through me like a blade. But instead of bleeding, I hardened. "Maybe you'll want to rethink that," I said. "Because while you've spent years tearing me down, I've been building a life you can't even imagine." They laughed. Bianca clapped her hands together mockingly. "Oh, please. What life? You barely bring anything to the table. Do you want a medal for paying your own phone bill?" Luke snorted. "Maybe she's got $50 in a savings account and thinks she's rich." Evelyn just shook her head, smirking. "Pathetic. Truly pathetic. But you've made your choice, Clarissa. Get out. You're not part of this family anymore." And then something happened. Something Evelyn hadn't counted on. My father finally spoke. "Enough," he said quietly. His voice trembled, but it was the first real word he'd spoken all night. Everyone turned to him. He stared at Evelyn, then at me. His eyes looked tired, older than I remembered. "Clarissa isn't leaving tonight. Not like this." Evelyn snapped her head toward him. "Excuse me?" But he didn't back down. "You've pushed her long enough, Evelyn. She's my daughter. You don't get to throw her out like trash." For a moment, silence. Evelyn's mouth hung open, Bianca gawked, and Luke shifted uncomfortably. I felt my chest tighten. It wasn't a full defense, not even close, but it was something. Something I hadn't heard in years. Evelyn recovered quickly, her voice sharp. "You've gone soft. If she doesn't obey, she's out. That's the rule." But now the cracks were showing. My father leaned back in his chair, weary but defiant. "Not tonight." For the first time, Evelyn looked rattled. And I realized something. Her power wasn't unshakable. It was fragile, built on the silence of everyone around her. And now, that silence was breaking. I straightened my shoulders, my pulse pounding. This was my chance. I walked back to the table, slow and steady, and set my phone down in front of me. The screen lit up, the numbers from my account clear for anyone to see. 6 figures. More than Evelyn, Bianca, and Luke had ever imagined. Their eyes widened. Bianca's smirk faltered. Evelyn's face drained of color. "This," I said, my voice steady, "is what you've been mocking. This is the life you thought was worthless. And I built it all on my own, without a cent from this family." The silence was thick. My father stared at the screen, his mouth slightly open. Luke leaned forward, his eyes darting between me and Evelyn. Bianca clenched her jaw, her confidence slipping. Evelyn tried to recover, her voice trembling. This means nothing. Money doesn't make you part of this family. It doesn't buy respect." I tilted my head, locking eyes with her. "Respect isn't bought, Evelyn. It's earned. And you've never earned mine." The room shook with the weight of my words. And for the first time in years, Evelyn had no response. The next morning, the house was too quiet. I woke up with that heavy weight in my chest, the kind you carry when you know there's a storm coming. My stepmother's words from the night before kept echoing in my head. "Hand over your salary and bonuses to your stepsister, or leave this family tonight." I had spent most of the night staring at the ceiling, asking myself if I was really that disposable to them. To her. To my father. Did they see me as nothing more than an ATM? A worker bee buzzing in the corner, expected to bring home the honey while my stepsister enjoyed the feast? At breakfast, my stepsister sashayed into the kitchen wearing my hoodie, the one I bought with my very first paycheck. She didn't even ask. She just wore it, stretching it across her frame like it belonged to her. "Good morning," she said with a smirk, tossing her hair. "Mom said you're going to help with my tuition this semester. Isn't that exciting? I'm finally going to get the education I deserve." I clenched my jaw, my spoon suspended in midair. The education she deserved? With my money? My father walked in, rubbing his temples, already defeated. "Let's not start the day with arguments. Just cooperate. Keep the peace." Keep the peace. Always those words. But never at their expense. Always at mine. I put my spoon down and looked at him directly. "Dad, do you think it's fair that I work 50 hours a week, take double shifts, and instead of building my own life, I'm supposed to hand it all over to her?" His silence told me everything. And that's when I realized something. I wasn't the problem. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't selfish. They had just grown used to treating me like I didn't matter. Before I continue this little performance, I want to stop and ask you, yes, you listening to me right now. Has this ever happened to you? Have you ever been treated like you were invisible, like your hard work didn't matter, or like your family expected you to give up everything while someone else got rewarded? Tell me in the comments where you're watching from, your city, your country. Share your own story. I want to hear if you've been through something similar, or if you would have walked out on the spot. And don't forget to subscribe and like this video, because what's coming next, you won't believe it. Back at the table, I stood up slowly. My stepmother was pouring herself coffee, pretending to ignore the tension. You're awfully quiet this morning, she said without looking at me. I straightened my shoulders. I've made a decision, I said. She finally turned, eyes narrowing. Oh, and what's that? That I'm done being your charity project. I won't give up my salary. I won't hand over my bonuses. If that means leaving this house, then so be it. The mug in her hand froze midair. My stepsister gasped like I had just confessed to a crime. My father sat there, caught between fear and shame. You're bluffing, my stepmother hissed. You wouldn't dare. But the thing was, I did dare. I pushed back my chair, the sound of the wooden legs scraping across the floor sharp enough to make everyone flinch. My heart was pounding, but my voice came out steady. You've taken enough from me, I said, looking at my stepmother straight in the eyes. My childhood, my freedom, and now you want my future?
No.
Not anymore. My stepsister laughed nervously, like it was all some kind of joke. Oh, come on.
Don't be so dramatic.
It's not like you need that money anyway. What are you even going to spend it on? You don't go out. You don't have friends. You don't even. I cut her off. I don't owe you an explanation.
Her smirk faltered.
For the first time, I think she realized I wasn't playing her game anymore. My father cleared his throat, weakly. Please, let's all calm down. We can talk this through. No, Dad, I said, my voice breaking, not from fear but from years of swallowing my anger. You've been calming things down my entire life, and look where it's gotten me. Used. Unseen. And I'm done being quiet. The room went dead silent. My stepmother set down her coffee cup slowly, her lips curling into a cold smile.
Fine.
If that's how you feel, then leave. Pack your things and go. Don't come crawling back when you realize no one else will put up with you. Those words stung, but instead of shattering me, they lit a fire in my chest. For years, I thought this house was my only home. But in that moment, I realized it was just a cage. And the door had always been open. I turned on my heel and walked down the hall to my room. Every step felt heavier and lighter at the same time, like I was leaving behind chains, but also carrying years of memories that weren't worth keeping. When I opened my closet, I noticed something. The shoes I had saved for, the ones I bought for myself after 3 months of work, they were gone. So was the necklace my grandmother left me. My stepsister had taken them. I was sure of it. It didn't even matter anymore. I stuffed what I had left into a bag.
Clothes.
My journal. A photo of my real mom I had kept hidden for years. That was all. By the time I walked out with my bag slung over my shoulder, they were waiting in the living room. My stepmother stood tall, arms crossed. My stepsister leaned smugly against the couch. My father looked like he wanted to speak, but didn't dare. I paused, my hand on the doorknob, and looked back one last time. You'll regret this, my stepmother said, her voice like ice. I smiled faintly. Maybe. But I'd rather regret leaving than regret staying. And with that, I stepped outside, shutting the door behind me. Not just on the house, but on everything that came with it. The air outside felt different.
Cleaner. Free.
For the first time in years, I could breathe. I didn't know exactly where I was going, but I knew one thing. My life was finally mine. And they would soon see that the girl they thought they could control was capable of more than they ever imagined. What I didn't know yet was that the world outside was about to test me in ways even they couldn't. The funny thing about starting over is that, at first, you don't even realize you're building a new life. You think you're just surviving, barely making it day to day. But every choice, every sacrifice, every long night eventually starts stacking, like bricks in a wall. And one morning, you wake up and realize you've built something solid. That's how it was for me. At first, it was brutal. I remember walking home from my second job one night, rain soaking through my shoes, my stomach growling because I hadn't eaten since breakfast. I passed a bakery where families were laughing, sharing warm bread and coffee, and I thought, that used to be me sitting at a table, pretending to belong to a family that wanted me gone. It hurt. It burned. But I also realized I didn't want to go back to that table. I wanted to build my own. And so I worked harder than I thought was possible. Early mornings, late nights, hours that stretched into blurs of numbers and files and spreadsheets. My bosses noticed. Clients noticed. And little by little, the world that had once slammed every door in my face started opening them. I'll never forget the day I bought my first car. Not a luxury one, just a reliable little sedan. But when I held those keys in my hand, I cried. Not because it was flashy, but because it was mine. Paid for with my effort, my sweat, my refusal to let them define me. And it didn't stop there. Months turned into years, and with every promotion, I grew not just in position but in confidence. The shy girl who once lowered her eyes at the dinner table was gone. I started traveling for work. First small trips, then overseas. I remember standing in Paris once, yes, Paris of all places, looking at the Eiffel Tower and laughing bitterly to myself. My stepmother and stepsister once acted like that city was some unreachable dream. And here I was, not running away like a coward, but standing proudly in the open, with a company badge that got me into rooms they could only fantasize about. I sent a postcard home. Not to them, just to myself. It said, "You made it, and you did it without them." Still, even as I was rising, the old scars never fully faded. I kept replaying the night my stepmother told me to hand over my salary or get out. The way my stepsister smirked when she held my bonus check in her manicured fingers. The way my father stayed silent.
It haunted me, and it fueled me.
I promised myself, one day they'll see. Not just hear, not just imagine, but see who I became without them. And then came the apartment. God, I love that place. Wide windows, sunlight pouring in every morning, a rooftop view where I'd drink tea and watch the city breathe. It wasn't just a home, it was a statement. Proof that I wasn't the broken, unwanted girl they cast aside. But the real transformation wasn't in the furniture or the view.
It was in me.
I started dressing differently, not for anyone else, but for me. Polished, sharp, confident. I spoke with more certainty. My laugh came easier. I walked into rooms and didn't shrink back anymore.
People respected me, trusted me,
wanted me at their tables. And for the first time in my life, I didn't just feel like I belonged, I knew I did. But you know what? None of it erased the past. I still dreamed about them sometimes. I'd see my stepmother's cold eyes, hear my stepsister's mocking tone, feel my father's silence crushing me. And I'd wake up with my fists clenched, heart pounding, wondering if revenge was worth it. Because here's the truth, success was sweet, but part of me wanted more. Not just to win quietly, but to make them face what they had done. To look me in the eyes and realize the daughter they dismissed was now someone they could never control again. That moment finally came the night my stepsister texted me. And when I read those words, "We need to talk. It's about mom and dad," I knew. This wasn't just life circling back. This was destiny handing me the stage I'd been waiting for. But instead of rushing, I let the anticipation build. I didn't answer right away. I made her wait. Days passed, then weeks. And with every hour of silence, I took back a piece of the power they had stolen from me. When I finally agreed to meet them, I didn't tell them where I lived. I didn't let them into my space.
No.
We agreed to meet at a restaurant. Neutral ground, but one I chose. A high-end one. The kind of place where the check could cover a month's rent in their world. And I already knew how I'd arrive. Not timidly, not quietly, but in a way that made sure none of them could ever look at me the same again. Because this wasn't just a meeting. This was the final act. And I was ready to play my part. The night of the dinner came, and I remember standing in front of the mirror, staring at myself. For a moment, I saw both versions of me. The girl they once dismissed, and the woman I had become. I adjusted my collar, slipped on my watch, and whispered to my reflection, "This is it. No more hiding." I arrived at the restaurant early. The maitre d' recognized me instantly, bowing slightly as he led me to the private dining room I'd reserved. The table gleamed with polished silver and crystal glasses, the kind of setting that whispered wealth without screaming it. That was the point. Subtle, undeniable power. They arrived 5 minutes late. Of course. My stepmother swept in first, her perfume hitting me before her words. My stepsister followed, designer bag dangling from her wrist, her eyes already scanning the room as though calculating the price of everything. And then my father, slower than I remembered, shoulders stooped, his gaze heavy with something that looked almost like regret. Almost. Wow, my stepsister said, sliding into her chair. This place is impressive. Didn't know you were into spots like this. I smiled faintly. There's a lot you didn't know about me. The silence that followed was thick. Finally, my stepmother cleared her throat. We're here because we need to discuss some important matters. As you know, things haven't been easy for the family. I leaned back, folding my hands neatly on the table. Go on. She hesitated, her confidence flickering just for a second. Your father's health is not what it used to be, and keeping up with expenses, especially with your sister's plans for graduate school, well, it's been difficult. We thought, since you've been working, perhaps you could step in. Help the family. I almost laughed. Step in? Help the family? The same family that told me I wasn't worth the food on my plate? My stepsister jumped in, impatient. Look, let's not dance around it. You've probably got some savings.
A job.
Whatever. It's only fair you contribute now. We've carried this family long enough.
Fair.
That word cut through me like a blade. Fair. I repeated softly. Do you want to talk about fairness? They shifted uncomfortably, but I didn't give them a chance to answer. Fair, I continued, wasn't what I got when my stepmother told me to hand over my salary or leave. Fair wasn't my father's silence. Fair wasn't watching you parade around in clothes bought with my hard work while I packed my bags in the dark. My stepmother's lips tightened. That was years ago. We were under pressure. You don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly. My voice was calm, but sharp enough to cut glass. I understand that you thought I was disposable, replaceable, someone to use and discard. But here's the part you didn't understand. I reached into my bag and pulled out a slim folder, sliding it across the table. My stepsister frowned, opening it, and her eyes widened. What is this? She whispered. Records, I said simply. Financial statements. Proof of ownership. Investments. Assets. Things I built while you laughed behind my back. Her jaw dropped as she flipped page after page. The numbers weren't just comfortable, they were staggering. My stepmother reached out, snatching the folder. Her hands trembled as she skimmed it, her carefully painted face cracking under the weight of what she saw. And then my father looked at me. Really looked. For the first time in years, his eyes weren't distant. They were searching, almost pleading. You did all this? He asked quietly. I met his gaze evenly. Without you. Without any of you. The silence that followed was deafening. My stepsister's face turned red, her voice sharp. So what? You think this makes you better than us? You think money changes everything? I leaned forward, my voice low but firm.
No.
Money doesn't change everything. But it changes this. I gestured around the table. This moment, this power dynamic, this story you've been telling yourselves about me for years. I stood, smoothing my dress. I didn't invite you here to beg, or to offer you help. I invited you here, so you would see me, really see me for the first time, not as the girl you tried to break, but as the woman who rose without you. My stepmother opened her mouth, but no words came. My stepsister looked like she wanted to scream, but all she could manage was a strangled laugh. My father lowered his head, shame finally catching up to him. I reached for my bag. Dinner's paid for. Enjoy it. Consider it my final contribution to this family. And with that, I walked out. The night air hit me like freedom, cool and sharp. I didn't look back. Not once. Because I didn't need to. The past was behind me. The future was mine. And as I slid into the black car waiting outside, I whispered to myself the words I'd been waiting years to say. This is my family's last memory of me. Not broken.
Not begging.
But victorious.